event, but in very different circumstances. Of course, usually we would be at Toorak College in Mount Eliza, but it is a little different tonight. So I really do appreciate you all joining us. There are so many of us here already, so thanks for being here. We're looking forward to a really great night. But to officially start our night, I will ask Kristy Kendall, our principal, to give a quick little introduction, as she always does for our GEG group.
Thank you, Phil, and welcome everybody to virtual Mornington Peninsula. For those of you, I can see some of you, many of your names and photos I know well, obviously, from you coming to many of our Google Educator Mornington Peninsula group sessions. But I can also see some people joining us who haven't been to the Mornington Peninsula, so welcome to our virtual region. I think tonight's meeting is maybe more significant than any of the meetings we've had before. And I guess I'd like to open tonight by talking a little bit about the context we're in now, and also, I guess, something we've always been very happy to wrap is sharing in a lot of our journey. So Phil, give me the thumbs up that I'm on screen and great. And we've been having a lot of fun this week with pinning each other's faces, and it feels like some strange game of pin the tail on the donkey. But it might be the most normal thing that I guess we're all going through this week. So throughout, I guess, my interactions over the last few weeks, I've been talking to various ministers, working with various unions, principals groups, you name it. So I know I haven't had a lot of sleep in the last 2 weeks, but I've got plenty to say, I guess, on tonight's topic. And the first thing I will say is that Phil and I I've been joking quite a bit that maybe Phil actually started the coronavirus. I know a lot of people believe it's a bat. There's conspiracy theories. But for me, I think what's particularly significant is that the staff at Toorak College have been literally nagged for years by Phil, that we need to embrace technology. We need to look at what particularly Google Classrooms, Google Meets, Google Slides, Google Docs, and every other form, I guess, of Zoom hangouts, of embracing FaceTime, of recording ourselves teach. You know, the success of what we're doing at Toorak right now isn't because we've had a good week. It isn't because we, got our teachers upskilled fast. It wasn't because, our kids were fortunate enough to have device access at home. The success of this week has been a long, hard slog of someone who's an advocate in our school, encouraging us all to challenge what we do, to think about what the future of teaching and learning looks like. And so on a lighter note, I've been joking that maybe Phil started the coronavirus in an attempt to get all of us educators online and teaching differently. So I know it's been quite a proud week for him amongst the turmoil of what's been going on. And I guess I'm really interested in you all in your context have either been embraced for the work you've been doing for years or the interest you've had for years, or maybe at this point your experience is the complete opposite, where people are now looking at you to fix the problem, find the solution, tell us what to do. But unfortunately, maybe the support hasn't been there up to now. Maybe the resources aren't here for you right now. Maybe the clarity on what needs to happen isn't there either. So I think there's no better group tonight than this group to spend some time together, learning and sharing, but also supporting one another. As I know right now, again, I have joked several times this week that Phil is the principal of Toorak this week because as we went online for the week, remote learning, and we're a few days into that program at the moment, I joked that I'm no longer the principal, he's controlling the school. And I guess the enormity of that responsibility, but the pride that comes from it working is huge. But I think speaking as an educational leader, there's never been a time that you have been so valued and so important to us. And I hate that it took a coronavirus maybe for everybody to see the value of what you're doing. But I hope that you use one another during this time to share practice, to learn, to grow. And already today, really, I was in a group with 24 other principals this morning. I was in a Zoom meeting with 24 principals across Victoria, but I also was personally teaching my class through Google Meet. And so every time I sent the girls to do something for 10 minutes, I'd turn off that camera and turn back on the other one. So I'm waiting for my my round of applause or flowers to arrive for my technological competency today. But you know, what was really interesting was that group said, hey, do you think we could share teachers this term? You know, the camaraderie that may come out of this, the opportunity, thinking differently about resourcing, the equality, the equity that we could help to provide across our sector. I remain optimistic that there will be wins from what we achieve and what we learn through now. And that is the philosophy of this group. The openness and the sharing that this group already perpetuates may actually see educational shift that we know we all really need to see. So, Phil, I don't know how much time you have for me to talk today, but maybe I'd just share with you a couple of things we've learnt this week with our remote online program. Our first biggest learnings, I guess, are that you don't replicate a school environment online. That running a school online with very heavy teacher instruction and activity means kids sitting for long periods of time in front of a screen. There's not the moving between, there's not the incidental social interactions, and our kids, although our teachers have done so much work and have covered every angle, our kids are finding it very hard work to sit and do all of that work in that sense. So the kids this week have called for, let us work on some projects together without you. You know, today I was teaching a different memory technique that involves using locations, and I actually got them physically walking around the house. There's a lot of teacher-driven instruction, which again, we've been trying to move away from in teaching. So learning number one, don't try to replicate the classroom online. That's your infancy steps. Think about how you stretch that. Number two, I guess the next biggest learning for us has been about how do you switch teachers' teaching from thinking about this is how we do it here and that's how we'll do it there. I think I've been very big this week on saying, why can't another teacher teach maths? Why can't some of our specialist staff in the school work with kids in different capacities? If we're not restrained by a classroom and numbers at a time, how could teaching look differently? And again, this is very much kind of level 2 thinking, but how do we actually use things differently so that we're getting something extra, we're getting something bonus from online, and that relies on people obviously that are happy to be courageous in their thinking. And I guess our third biggest learning this week was we've got 830 students, we have 150 teaching staff, and on Monday at 8 o'clock, it all worked. Teachers taught from their houses. Some of them had their kids at home. Kids worked from their homes. A lot of them had parents working or younger siblings or dogs. I've got a lot of dogs in my videos at the moment, and handstands. My primary class likes to do handstands every time I'm on for some reason. I've suggested they record that and share that with their friends, but it doesn't need to be in my classroom. But I haven't got the win there yet. But you know, I think what overwhelmed me Monday was something that we theorized about just worked. And we didn't have one kid or one staff member that couldn't tether a phone, access something, get somewhere. And I know, you know, there's some luxury in that, but also the power to enable technology to teach, the power to connect with kids at the time of their greatest uncertainty, the ability for teachers to maintain calm, for them to see their smiling faces, what we did this week for young people's mental health and their wellness, I think was incredible. And I guess they're kind of our big takeaways after a few weeks mobilising a massive remote community, which we know may become a reality for all of us for some time. But Phil, yes, I'm obviously very happy to hand over to you to do the hard work again, or if there are questions that anyone you know, in particular would like me to touch on. Obviously, if Phil says I've still got 2 minutes, then I've still got 2 minutes. He is the Principal Carew. So I have to ask Principal Carew if that's okay, if anyone had any questions or anything they wanted to ask, or if Phil, if there was anything you wanted me to talk about.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Kristy. I think it's really good for, you know, different contexts for, you know, everyone in this group. We are, you know, this group is independent schools. We are CAFED, we are government schools. And I think it's really important for us to see different perspectives. And I guess, you know, for you as a principal to share, you know, your, you know, not just the weeks leading up to this, and, you know, the, you know, how that has worked for you. So I guess if anyone does have any questions, feel free to just throw them in that chat for us if you have a question for Kristy. And just while we jump in, and I'll leave it a minute for you to ask some questions, I'll just share my screen really quickly to go through and just give a quick overview of our afternoon before we get started with Jim. So I'll jump into where we are at today. So we are going to look at capturing learning with WeVideo. And, you know, just to give some context, this was all, these 4 sessions, except Mana made a little change, but the 3 sessions were all set in before any of this, you know, this closure news or anything happened. So it's quite fitting that we are looking at WeVideo. We are looking at the new Rubrics and Originality reports in Classroom, and we are looking at inclusive technologies with Google. So, you know, we are joined by some amazing presenters tonight. And I'd like to thank Jim from Deploy Learning and Melissa from Toorak, and then also Kimberley Hall from Google for being here tonight. I know Jim and Kimberley, we were in a webinar last night. There's been a few going on, and I know everyone is super busy. So I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I have put times here. The times may differ, so we'll just kind of go with that. We'll be a little bit open with how that could work for all of us. So I will stop
Signing off.
for now, but I think with no questions.
No questions, because I've got all, you know, I've got no answers like everybody else. But no, I just, you know, really keep using this network and sharing. Sharing is going to be, I think, everyone's philosophy. And as I said, I think there are great outcomes to come out of this. And yeah, we owe a huge amount of gratitude to all of you for continuing to get us in some way, shape or form ready for what is to come. So thank you very much and have a good evening.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristy. Thanks heaps.
Bye.
Awesome. Thank you. We will jump in now and introduce all of our guest speakers. So I'll just ask if Jim, Kimberley and Melissa, will start with Jim. If you could just switch your mic off and just introduce yourself and just really briefly tell us about your session. Just like a quick little hey, and then we'll jump into your session first. Thanks, Jim. If you are here, maybe Kimberley. Jim or Kimberley.
There we go. I'm back. Am I there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Jim.
I've been using the same microphone for 2 weeks now, and it worked great until just now. So, well, hey, thanks, Phil. Thanks for having me. I'm going to talk to you about how to capture your kids' learning when they're not there. So how do you get kids to tell the story of what's going on in their lives? And I'll just use WeVideo as that video example, but there are so many. So that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. Kimberley.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I have a little plus point 2 with me as well. As everybody knows, everybody is working at home in some unusual circumstances at the moment. So hi everyone, I'm Kimberley. I work with the Google for Education team. I'm actually based out of the Melbourne office, which is a really cool space on Collins Street. So when we're allowed to see each other in person again, feel free to pop in and say hi. I always like having teachers stop by the office because as an ex-teacher, I know it's pretty cool to get out and have someone else pay for your lunch for once, which Google does a very good job with food. That's not the point of my presentation today. I was going to talk solely about inclusive technologies. I have a bit of a background and interest in accessibility and how we make sure we are providing opportunities for learning for all of our students. Don't mind my son. But given the current circumstances, I am going to put a bit of a considerable slant towards some of the online support resources that Google has been putting together to support schools during this time. We will still look at some specific inclusive technologies within there, but I will make sure that everybody's aware of all the different efforts happening. And I'll try and offload my son before I actually present.
Thank you, Kimberley. Please don't. I like your special guest for tonight. Thank you. That session sounds great. And then Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm a teacher of English and Drama and Humanities here at Toorak College. I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the new Rubrics feature in Google Classroom and the Originality reports, which have been very handy and will continue to be really handy when we're now going so online. So everything we're doing, in Google Classroom now, we can also be assessing in a really easy, straightforward and streamlined way, really. So that's the Rubrics and the Originality report. Also, particularly for secondary, I suppose, any kind of research assignment, you can basically check the authenticity of the students' work. But not only that, the students themselves can check their own authenticity. So they can run the report themselves and tell if they're putting things in their own words or not, which some of them are actually unable to work out. So two really good tools that I'll be talking about soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Melissa. So Jim, Kimberley, Melissa, very excited for all of your sessions tonight. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat and then we'll try answer some of those questions at the end of each session. So I've kind of said like a bit of a 15 to 20 minutes, give or take, see how we go with all of those. But yeah, no stress. We are so open and agile and everything's great, and we're not sticking by the rules that maybe we have previously. And we won't talk about numbers or anything as well. 10, 5, there's all these rules now. So let's just do however long you'd like to talk for is great with me. So we'll start off with Jim. Jim, if you are ready.
I am. Can I share my screen, Phil?
Please do, thanks.
Yeah, here we go. 1 second. I'm really missing my microphone. I'm really disappointed by it. Let me just jump in here. Give me 2 seconds. Make sure that works. How you going now? Can you see this?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Jim.
I'll just bump this out. So thank you guys, and thank you everybody for hanging in there and doing the good work. It's really great, and it's really such a special way for us to get together. And I just want to honor you and all the work that you've been doing this week, all of you, and some of you still in school, some of you are not in school, but it's just what a powerful time for us to be all coming together. So I thought it would just be cool just to talk to you a little bit about what I know, something I grew up with. I am a former film guy, so I taught film production in California, thus the accent, and I taught that for about 10 years, and I've always fallen in love with it. And so for many years, I worked for a company I helped start in the US called the EdTech Team, so you may have seen me around at some of those summits. But in August, I decided to cut ties with the US and start a new company called Deploy Learning. And so we're not only a Google partner, but we're also a certified trainer and an innovator, and all the other jazz that comes with that. But the point of this is that I've always gone back to the thing that I love, and that's really to teach and practice with video. The thing I want to be able to share with you at the start is this slide here that I have stolen many, many years ago from a friend of mine named Frank Gutler in the US. And it's this idea of using video for literacy. And, that first line, and I've shared this so many times, so forgive me if you've seen it all those times. But the first line there, you see, a lot of you teach To Kill a Mockingbird, especially if you're in secondary. And that concept there that, multiple sentences that are sort of similar or in the same sort of situation or place, that they're paragraphs, they become paragraphs. And multiple paragraphs become chapters. And so when we look at movie making, it's a similar, we just use different language. It's the concept of a sentence is really what we call a shot. That's when you start recording and then you stop recording. And if you start recording and stop recording all in the same area, like in an office or in a classroom, out on in the street, those are called scenes. So that would be the street scene. This would be the office scene, something like that. And of course, that all combines to be a movie. And so many kids who are visually inclined, they would relate to this extra bit. But then, of course, just the concept of media literacy and visual literacy is such an important part of our students' education career. So, anyways, I just want to share that slide. I'm sure you'll be able to grab it from the recording and just screen grab it and steal it if it's your own, because I know I did that about 15 years ago. So I want to talk to you also about the concept of online editing. So for many years when I was in the classroom, I was a Final Cut Pro certified trainer. So I taught my students how to become Final Cut Pro certified, which is an Apple program. That changed many years ago when all these other things started popping up. And back in those days, the online editing was not happening. It just didn't work. But now it's totally working, and it's pretty phenomenal. And when you can edit online, you enable the ability for collaboration. You're able to share media back and forth, and then we're able to use these templates and musics and music songs, I guess, if you will, and videos from all over the internet that are royalty free. So you don't really have to worry about copyright anymore. You just don't have to use those songs. There's just so many great songs that are available. And the way we can do that is with WeVideo. WeVideo is just one of the many programs, but WeVideo works online. So it's not like I have to download this program and it only works on my PC, or this program only works on my Mac, or it only works on my Chromebook. This is all used through the browser, which is such an opportunity for equity and just get everybody to be able to get on the same page. I think I want to share one of the biggest pieces of WeVideo that I think that make it special enough for me to want to talk about. It's this concept of collaboration. In most projects, and in WeVideo as well, kids will get together. They can shoot their video and they can upload that stuff to a Google Drive folder. You can send it up to your Google Drive folder and share that. And now these pieces are all disparate and they're all sort of they're not edited. But then you can take that video and pull it into WeVideo, and then you can push it out into anything like G Suite. And I write G Suite here because it would be Google Classroom. So kids could share their completed videos to Google Classroom. They could put it back into Google Drive, and they can embed that into a Google site, or just share it right out of their drive. So I think it's just some real powerful steps, I guess is the right word, but to make this easy for everybody. And the concept of being able to use your iPad that they have at home, or from school, or even a device that just does any recording, or even a phone that they borrowed from their parents or that they have because they're not allowed to use them because they're home now and you can't stop them, and that they can capture this video and then upload it directly to their Google Drive. But another thing that comes from WeVideo is this concept of kids can take all their video and put it into a Google Drive folder that maybe you were managing. So you could have a Google Drive folder in your drive, and then you could share that with all your students to give them editing rights. They could shoot all their video and stick it in there, and then you could put it into Google WeVideo, and then they can make their video from there. And that's, to me, that's like, oh yeah, like, because Bobby is going to shoot something that Amy can't get to because she doesn't live in that part of town, or she doesn't have that at her house, or she doesn't have, whatever it might be. Just be thinking more specifically about your students and what they might be able to shoot from home. And so being able to dump all that into a shared folder and then bring it in, that's awesome, right? That's awesome. And then this other piece that WeVideo has is something called collaborative projects. Now you can take that video and those kids could just upload that to their project, their shared project, and then edit the same video together. Does that make sense? So these kids could actually be collecting video, putting it into the same video project, or video timeline is what I would call it. And those 5 kids could be making their own, they could be working on the same movie. They just can't edit at the exact same time, but like once Mary's done, Mary checks out of that project, Eric could get in. And I've never seen that before. It's exactly what I wanted when I was a film teacher. I was desperate for that. And it's here, it's happening right now. And then the last thing is you as a teacher, you can create a WeVideo folder inside WeVideo with their premium service, and you can have these common assets. Let's say this is like, you only want to give them 5 songs. So you have your 5 songs that you give them. And then maybe there's an interview or recording of your voice, or interview with the principal. And then maybe the school logo. You can have all that in a shared media. The kids can grab that and then edit their own projects. And this list of goes on and on of all these different ways we can be using this. It's pretty fascinating, and you'd have to be able to take a look at it to really know what I mean. And their website has just a ton of resources, right? Another thing I want to share with you that I think is really good in these times, especially, is the ability for you to go in there and use what we call markers to give feedback throughout the projects. So kids could be going in there and they could be working on their project, and you could be checking in. You could every once in a while just go in, check in, make a note. I love this shot. Hey, I think you should replace the shot. I don't really know what your intention is here, et cetera, whatever feedback that you think is going to be helpful for your students. Really, really cool. And then the last other feature I want to share with you is the idea of, maybe not the last, but the green screening, right? So we call this chroma keying. And I don't know how well you can see this video I'm playing right now, but you know when you use green screen, WeVideo, of course, has green screen, lots of programs do. But I'm sharing with you a diorama that a teacher had posted online. This teacher had her students create a diorama, and if you can see it, they're in their diorama. There's a boy over there on the left in the screen on the stream. Here's a girl that's sitting down in that structure she built. And this entire time, these kids are talking about what it is that they've done. And it's that making thinking visible, taking your green screening instead of like, now you're in Paris, that's so fun. Instead, they're working on a project. They're able, and they've done an actual hands-on project, and now they're in their project. Like that can be really, really a really fascinating process, right? And then of course, the last thing I want to share with you in that way is that screencasting is such a powerful piece of everything, right? So as teachers, we're screencasting, especially when we're working with students asynchronously. We're maybe doing some sort of pre-video that they watch, and then before they come onto the show, or before they come onto your classroom for the day, whatever it might be. But screencasting is also available inside of WeVideo, and I think that's just a given. But it's also such a great way for kids to be recording their screen and giving their voice, like in many cases we are tonight, for you to stop, or for other kids to stop, rewind, and watch again. And so that a concept of screencasting can be really a powerful piece, not just for you to teach them, but also for them for you to assess them, right? Because there's such a formative assessment that the way we've been using it in the classroom is just like, we don't have that ability. We have to be sending out Google Forms, but also getting this back from students as a screencast, what they were thinking, what their process was, could be so helpful for you. So anyways, I just wanted to be able to share that. Let me get out of here really quickly. I just want to share with you a couple other things, if that's okay. Do I have about 2 minutes, Phil? Maybe say yes.
Yeah, 2:05, all good.
Okay, here inside of WeVideo, it's it's really easy to get into these programs, but I just want to share with you, as you build a project, you could easily start editing. But what they have here for us here in this window is stock media. So a lot of times we say, hey kids, I want you to tell the story of where you are. I love the idea of place-based studies. Just like who are we? What languages are we speaking? Where are we? What's the geography of the space? The geology. It's really fantastic. So you can actually go in here and type something as simple as Melbourne, and as soon as you hit search, there's a ton of stock video that you can grab that kids can use to tell the story of the place. Now, you wouldn't tell the story with all those people because that doesn't exist anymore. But over here, if we go over to something like this, there's so many great shots, right? But if you were doing something like you were teaching To Kill a Mockingbird, and you wanted to go like, small town, USA, and you wanted them to do a book report on To Kill a Mockingbird, you could easily go into here, and kids could be grabbing shots of something like this, which is not necessarily 1950s Alabama, but maybe something else. Oh, look at this, perfect. This is To Kill a Mockingbird all day long. And so grabbing video that's free for them to be able to use and is really fantastic. So if I were to grab something like that, let me grab like this typical shot and put that into my timeline. Here's a shot of just in general. Give that a second. Here's this. Yeehaw! I'm down in the South. I can say that because I live in the South. I can go here to audio, and I can maybe go down here to the premium music and find something that's maybe sentimental. And now, oh, that just kills it right away. So I'm just going to put that in here. And so now I've got this great shot of like an opening shot of my book report on To Kill a Mockingbird. You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff that, and then maybe my student is on camera, or maybe my student's using voiceover just to talk about, I felt like this, or this is where I felt like in this chapter, et cetera, et cetera. Just really powerful stuff. Let me go back to the slides, and then I'll just show you this last slide here. And the reason I tell you about all the stuff that's available for premium is that WeVideo, just like so many other great companies, are giving this to you giving to you for free. So I created this short link, this bit.ly deploy, that's me, WeVideo. It'll take you to a blog entry talking about how they're wanting to work with you to give you the free version of WeVideo. And part of that, and I've spoken to them about this, is that if they sign up, if anybody signs up and gets this, you know, it's free for as long as this madness is going on. I'll work with your school and your staff. I'll do a 30-minute webinar, just because it's one of my loves, and I really love the idea of using not just WeVideo. I love the idea of using video to tell the story of our learning. So I hope that was helpful. I tried to be quick. I tried to be helpful and specific, but let me stop sharing my screen. What do you think about that, Phil?
That was amazing, Jim. Love that. Thank you so much. Whoa. It was so good. I think my favorite part, I could actually see in the, like, everyone's faces when you were showing that the little green screen of the model. Everyone was just like, I'm sold. I think everyone signed up for WeVideo right now.
And by the way, that wasn't even made with WeVideo. It was just like, it's just so many, there's so many programs, right, that you can do that with.
Yeah.
But I too was just as freaked out about that. I'm like, because I don't really like green screening. I never really fall in love with it. And as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I'm doing it. That's great. I'll do it.
I'm sold. No, I love it. That was really great. Thank you so much. So definitely check out that bit.ly /deploy WeVideo, and we can share those links out as well. We just had 2 quick questions for you, Jim. One was, what education plan do you use, and then how much is it normally? So I guess, yeah, more just around those plans for.
So I don't sell WeVideo, but it's I love the way they always say it. They say it's the price of a cup of coffee per year per student, which is, sorry, that's my son. Which isn't too bad, right? So the whole thing, so price of a cup of coffee per year per student is negotiable probably. And then teachers get it for free. So you guys, if you just go to the WeVideo site and just sort of click around, I think it's under pricing. There's an education space, and you can click on that, and there's a place for you just as an educator to get it. But that link I had up on the screen, and I can put it in the show notes or something like that. It takes you to a blog entry that your whole school gets it for free, right, during this time. So not just you as a teacher could have a play for sure, especially over the break. But you might want to. Sorry, my son is snuck in. He's like around my feet right now. So
perfect timing. Thank you so much, Jim. That's great. We'll have some questions at the end, but definitely share those links out. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Melissa, when you're ready, want to share your screen?
I can, I think. Let's do that. Okay. Got me?
Yes, perfect. Thanks, Melissa. I can see your screen now.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm just going to take you through the new features for Google Classroom, particularly the rubrics and then the Originality report. I've been using them. I was excited for them to come out. That's why I'm talking, because I stupidly told Phil how excited I was about rubrics. And then he was like, hey, maybe you could present. And I was like, oh, all right, I can do that. So this is just really from my experience, and to show you how you can use them, and how you create them too, because it's pretty simple. So I think I'm going to have to do that. Like that. All right. Oh no. Okay, I'll just do it like that. All right. So creating a new rubric, I can show you how you can do that. Can you see that properly? No. I'm flicking between. Let me just. Can you see that? Yes. Okay, so you can create a new rubric really easily. It can be something that you do from the top of your head or something that you have already done. So if you've got a rubric that you're using for a particular unit of work, you can kind of copy and paste it all in a pretty simple way so that you can then have it as a rubric. So you can see here, you just go to where you would usually start a new assessment or an assignment and give it a title and everything, but it's this area here that you go to and click rubric, and there are 3 options when you get there. So you can either create a rubric from scratch. Once you've done that one time, then you can reuse that rubric for another class or for another year level, and you can import a rubric that you have managed to export from Drive. So it's pretty simple. You just create the rubric, and then you have to fill in the blanks. So here's one that I've prepared earlier. This is an existing rubric that we have at our school for a persuasive speech for Year 9s. So I just can copy and paste pretty easily the title and then the description of that particular criterion, like so. And then this is the fun bit. You can allocate points. So I know that the top level for my class is a very high, and that's 5. And on my existing rubric, that's the description of what a very high is for that particular criterion. So I can copy that in, and then so on and so on, down to high, and you can copy it all in like that, which is really helpful. But the next bit is the best bit. You don't have to do that for the whole thing. You can make it a bit easy for yourself. So you can actually go over here to these 3 little dots here, and you can duplicate the criterion. So you could, for example, you could just clear that. But you would have your levels there. So you could continue to duplicate that a few times, and then there's a bit less cutting and pasting. So yeah, it's a pretty quick process overall. And it then, you would save it. Just pretend, I haven't put all the things in now. Yeah, you can just save it like normal, and then it comes up as a little rubric like this for that task. So you can then click on it and see it in its entirety as a normal rubric. And for the students, or for when you're marking, it's just coming up on the side there. So it's really handy for anything that's submitted online. You can now just go through, you're reading the students' work, and then you can be assessing as you go. You can click on the criterion so you can see exactly what it was that you're looking for in that particular thing, very high, and it also adds it all up for you, which is so helpful. So no more maths, and it gives you a total grade there. You can put in a private comment here, but that will go to the student first. So with the rubrics, you can return the work as you do with any classwork. You can return all the submissions at once, so all the students get their marks at the same time. So you could do return multiple submissions and click that off, and then they all get sent the grade, and they can click on the rubric too, like the entire rubric, and see what they need to do to improve. And the private comment would go out first though, so that would go out immediately. So that's, for me, a little bit of a tricky bit, but I just keep the comment on a separate document and copy and paste that in just before I'm about to return the work, so that they don't get their comments at different times. So say I marked one on a Monday and then one on a Tuesday. Yeah, it would be a little bit, they'd see how slowly I was marking it basically. So yeah, so that's the creating the new rubric. Let's just discard that. You could also reuse one. So you can see when I go to reuse, here's something I have prepared earlier. I've got these ones, so I could click on that, and so then year after year I could keep doing that, which is great. You can export your rubric. So if you go to the actual rubric, you can export it and save it to sheets, and then potentially share that with other staff members. And you can also choose to, oops, don't know if I want to do that. To import from sheets as well. So yeah, really, really handy little thing there. going very quickly, but that's okay. The other thing that I was going to tell you about is the Originality report. So this is so helpful for a teacher of humanities particularly. So I just did a report with my Year 8s where they had to research quite a bit of information, and then they were able to run these Originality reports. So when you're creating work again, you can click over here and you can click Originality reports, and you'll see that you're only allowed to do 3 per class, but that's okay. And so you just set that, and then once you've set that, the student is able to run 3 Originality reports themselves. So the Originality report basically checks their work, against millions of websites and books. So basically a really intensive Google search, I believe. And then it flags any passages that actually resemble somebody else's work. So as I said before, sometimes students don't even really know that they're not paraphrasing things very well. They're not putting it into their own words. So the fact that they are allowed to do this up to 3 times before they submit their work is really handy too. It's a really good learning tool because they can actually then realise that they have to learn to put it into their own words and rephrase. So this is an example of, I am the student here. I've just submitted this myself, and I've basically just ripped this off the internet. And this is the little bit here that shows us that you've run the Originality report. So, oh no, I don't want to get there. That's the Originality report itself, and you can see all this highlighted stuff is words that come from somewhere else. So it first of all tells you that there's 20 flagged passages, which is basically everything in this particular document. Gives you a percentage. So 93% of this is not my own work. But the best bit is it then goes in and shows you what the student's passage is and then what the web match is. And you can say, well, okay, yes, she did get it from there. And yeah, it's pretty close. So that's not really your own work. You could also then add in a comment like you need to use a citation here and get them to learn about how referencing might be something they could do, or using quotation marks, or just putting it into their own words. So yeah, really, really helpful. I think, yeah, you're only allowed to use it for 3 pieces of work at the moment. I'm not sure what that is, but yeah, it's super handy. So yeah, I think that is all. Did I miss anything, Phil, or anything that I need to tell you?
That was an amazing summary, Melissa. You got through and just bang, bang, bang. I loved it. You know, we will, we're recording this, so we will post the video, so you'll be able to go back through and, you know, pause the areas you need to. But I think, you know, a great summary, you know, the Rubrics and Originality reports, you know, they're so new, and, you know, you jumped on board and really ran with them. So thank you so much for that. Now we have this great summary that we will be sharing out with our English faculty, and I hope yeah, you will share out that video as well with your faculty. And please let me know if you do have any questions with that. But yeah, a fantastic resource that we will all be able to use. Just a question there for you, Melissa. Would the Originality report check against other students' work from the class?
I don't think so. I don't think it would. But, you know, you've got all the class there together, so I'm going to scan through and
I'll jump in on that, Phil.
Yeah, please do, please.
It is a common request, and it's in beta at the moment. I don't think it's a secret, so that there is a beta test at the moment to try and make sure that student work gets checked against other student work within the school.
That'd be good.
So yeah, I don't know when it's coming, but it is coming.
And can I just add to that, if anyone is in a department school or like the Catholic school that has the central tenant, that would mean that it will actually test against every drive of every student in every school in there. Is that right, Chris? Do you like how I'm just somewhat making that up?
Yeah, well, I guess it's within the same domain, so yeah, I guess it would. So
it'll be pretty powerful for government teachers in Victoria who are part of the central tenant. When, you know, if there's hundreds of schools in there, means that you know, when Melissa just grabs her work from the internet or grabs it from Chris Betcher at the school down the road, then it actually will flag it because Chris's work is in the same domain as well, which is really an interesting feature of Originality reports as opposed to some of the others, I think.
Yeah, I believe the way it's going to work too is there'll be a drive folder somewhere, and you can actually preload that with anything, and it will check against that as well. So it'll check against the corpus of work from previous students, plus the corpus of whatever you decide to point it to, plus obviously the internet.
Awesome, amazing, thank you, Kimberley and Chris, special Googlers here to give us the inside scoop. Melissa may be fangirling a little bit at the moment, I think. I think we all agree with Roger in the comments there. Wow, Originally report is scary good. Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was awesome. Kimberley, are you ready?
Hi.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have my little toddler, either of my toddlers with me right now, but I can't 100% promise that they won't join midway through the call, so just apologies in advance. It's the challenges of no grandparent babysitting during this interesting time that we're in. So all right, I'm going to talk a little bit, I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Google is doing at the moment in terms of supporting schools and just some general inclusive technology stuff. You can see my screen now, right?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So as I mentioned at the start, it was originally Phil and I did talk about just sharing a whole lot of stuff to do with inclusive technologies, which is one of my passions, but I am very conscious of the climate that we're in, and there's potentially some other things as well that people would really like to know about. So we'll try and do a bit of both. I'll give you some links. There's a whole lot of links off to other resources, and I have put my email address there as well, if so just kimberleyhall@google.com. So if there's anything that we don't get an opportunity to talk about tonight, then please feel free to follow up. And also I will say that obviously Chris Betcher, one of my colleagues from Sydney, is on the call. So as I'm talking, any questions that you have, he will probably be able to answer them before I even stop talking. So please feel free to ping as much as possible into that chat, and we will cover everything off. And Chris, feel free to chime in as well. Chris and I have worked together for a long time, so we have a tendency to talk over the top of each other. So, all right. So as I said at the start, so my background, actually similar to yours, Melissa, I was an English teacher predominantly in a secondary school in Victoria for a long time, and then I have done a lot of teacher training in the last few years and now work with Google. And what I'm going to share tonight is some of this support stuff. So I guess just to make it as simple as possible, Google has sort of put together, these are two main resources website-wise that I direct schools to at the moment in terms of support through this changing education landscape where we don't know who's going to be in our class from day to day, if we're going to have classes face-to-face. We know there hasn't been the official government policy yet, but I think I read this morning that 74% of students or something are not turning up to classes currently, even in schools that are technically open. So a lot of teachers are in this hybrid mode of having kids half in front of them, you know, some at home, etc. So these resources have been developed with that in mind. And I just realized I'm sharing my tab. So when I open a new tab, that's not going to be very useful for you. So just bear with me as I change my sharing. But most of you have probably already gone to these sites. And if you haven't seen them already, I would encourage you to jump on and explore them yourself. And let me just jump over here. Oh, and I typed the email, the web address wrong, did I? co.edu. Hold on, I know. Can you see my error screen at the moment? Huh. Yeah. Oh, that's really helpful. Let me just copy and paste it because I appear to be having trouble with my ability to actually type right now. All going very well. Here we go. Okay, for some reason, I think I obviously had lost the ability to type. I always found that as a teacher, anybody else really good at spelling until you have to write on a board in front of a whole room full of students, and then suddenly your ability to spell basic words disappears. That was me. Okay, so this is our landing page for resources for schools that are being affected by COVID-19. And this is very much a space that I would encourage you to come to yourself. If you can type the address in, and I'm sure someone will drop it in the chat. If not, I will. And find what is relevant to you in your context. Because as I said, we're really aware of the fact that people are in lots of different contexts and teaching in lots of different environments around the world. So if you come in here, you can see that you can actually filter, and we are trying to, I guess, provide support on a couple of different levels. So there is specific support around distance learning. So what does it mean to actually be in an environment where you have your students not in front of you? Tips for doing that. We have had in that space. I'll just click and flag and show a few of those. So we have had a whole lot of training, quick start guides that have been, I guess, amped up, for lack of a better term, over the last few weeks in terms of really spelling out to all educators how they get started with this, what they do if they have any issues. Lots and lots of support videos have been added, all in this space. And actually that link didn't go to the right thing. We're actually experiencing, I did see this being flagged today, that some of these links, if you guys are jumping to them, you might be experiencing the same thing I'm doing right now, where the links are actually not going to the place you think they're going to. Chris, are you having that right now, or is that just me? Anybody else experiencing that?
No, we did experience that earlier today, and we did flag it. And I don't know whether someone just hasn't cut and paste something properly, but yeah, it's getting fixed right now.
It's getting fixed. So America is basically shut down for the day, which means that by the time we wake up in the morning, the links will go to the right place, which is great. So I will just talk about what they are then, and some of the things that I think are most useful on this page. So when this link works, and you can just Google these things as well, we have had our head of educational impact, Jenny McGarrah, who both Chris and I actually worked with, and Jim, for a number of years, and she's a fabulous educator. She's run a couple of what we call EDU on Air webinars, which really unpacked what it means to be teaching in a distance learning environment, a whole lot of tips for things like marking student attendance, doing formative assessment, check-ins on well-being for students and things like that. Obviously, being run by Google, it was very much focused on how we do those things supported through the G Suite platform, and they're actually really, really brilliant. You can, when you go to YouTube and you find them, you can actually just jump to the part of the video that might be particularly relevant to you, whether that's something like, you know, what's a great way of checking in with my students and how they're going, and then jump to that part of the video. The other one, which a lot of schools, if anybody on the call is still at that stage, if you're in a government school and you're in holidays mode right now, preparing for potentially not coming back, this one pager, when it links off to the right page, is actually a really great place to get started on how do you make sure that you've got all your things set up correctly, including some things around best practice for enabling Hangouts Meet within an education domain. So the advice is that you would enable it for teachers to be able to create, but not students to be able to create calls. That sort of stuff is all covered in these resources. I'll jump up here and jump across to the other options, and I'm not going to actually even try to click on any of these links based on how successful my first lot of clicking on was, but I will flag if we go to product training. This is where I've had a lot of conversations with schools in the last week or two about is that, you know, I keep hearing from people that there's a group of us like Principal Carew who have been trying to get teachers on board the technology is great for learning bandwagon for most of 2 decades, and have been somewhat struggling with that. And we have actually had bigger jumps forward in the last couple of days than we have in 20 years. And if you have teachers that have been really not engaged in this space, this series of training, which may or may not link to the right place right now, but it's just from our teacher centre, is fabulous. So it's called First Day Of. And we have first day of Google Classroom, first day of Docs, first day of Forms, first day of Sheets, first day of whatever, all the different Google tools. And they're really, really straightforward, easy to follow, self-paced activities that a teacher can do to engage in what does it mean to be using Google Classroom for the first time? What are the things that I fundamentally need to know and ensure that I do? So this is the first of the resources, which is not brilliantly working right now, but that's okay. And then I'll jump back across and talk about the other, which I know I saw someone had shared in the chat already. And the other major resource that's sort of been pumped out recently is this teachfromhome.google. And I know talking to Phil yesterday on the webinar that he and I were on together, that he has already seen this, and I know a lot of people will have. But if you can just Google Teach From Home, because nobody remembers the web address for anything, but I'll just jump across and show you what that looks like. So it's a temporary hub of information, and Google has actually built this in collaboration with a couple of global partners to just try and support teachers as much as possible during this time. So once again, a whole lot of different resources on here. So how do I teach remotely with video calls, and what do you need to do to set up video calling in your house? Here's a tutorial to start video callings. What is it like to use the Q&A feature within Google Slides? And if you haven't used that, that's a really great one for just, I guess, checking in with your students as you are learning online. What if you just want to live stream your lessons? And what happens in here is if you click on the tutorial, it will take you off to a great little simple tutorial. Or if you click on open, it will actually go straight into that product and let you run with it as well. But the other thing we are aware of very, very acutely is that equity is a big issue when we're talking about distance learning, and that not all students have access to online tools at all times. We know there's lots of cases where students are in a home where mum and dad are both working from home, and potentially siblings, and there's one family computer shared, etc. And so how do I teach in different ways as well? And so, like, what does it mean if you're teaching without video calls? Sundar, is he our CEO? No, head of, what is Sundar now? I'm supposed to know that. You're not recording it, right? Don't record it. Can you edit that part out afterwards? That would be great. Sundar, the CEO of Google, actually tweeted something the other day about Google knows that you don't all have technology. Here's some great resources for teaching without any technology as well. And so that's sort of captured in here as well. And then the thing that I will jump down to, because I need to stop talking now and just briefly talk about, is which was what was going to be the major focus of my presentation originally, was about some accessibility stuff. And so I just want to flag some of the couple of the biggest accessibility features that exist in terms of teaching online with your kids right now. And then I'm going to just share a resource, which is my resource for other inclusive technologies as well. So first thing I just want you to do, if you are in the Meet right now and you haven't checked it out, what I'd like you to do is move your mouse on the screen until you get your little menu bar appear down the bottom, and then I want you to turn on the captions. And this is a feature in Meet that actually enables live closed captioning of the video call. And if someone can just unmute themselves and say something, so it's not just me talking in the captions.
Yep, that works fine. I'm looking at it, taking the voices and headphones.
Yep, hi Kimberley, I can see it too.
Great. And so you'll see when Chris and Justine talk to them that it actually shows you exactly who is talking, and it does a really impressive job of actually live closed captioning what we say. So it's a really fabulous resource to show students that exists, because there is a huge equity piece in terms of understanding that students get when they are able to not only listen to but also read what is being said. And everybody I can see, the people I can see in the chat right now are staring like absolutely transfixed on getting the right words. It's doing a pretty good job, isn't it? My piece of advice to you is, if you have not used live closed captioning before, this is also available actually in Google Slides when you're back in a more traditional classroom environment. Do it a couple of times before you do it with students, because it is incredibly hard not to stare at your live closed captions and like as teachers, we want to grade how well Google's going the whole time. You're like, oh, that was wrong. Half a mark off there, half a mark off there. So try and get that out of your system as much as possible before you start with it. And the other one that I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of, because it's a really great one in terms of inclusive technologies, is that, and this has been around for a long time, so probably most of you have seen this, is the concept of being able to type with your voice. And so you can actually do voice typing natively in docs and in slides. Slides is voice typing into the speaker notes only. And so what I have worked with a lot of schools around is voice type into your speaker notes and then just copy them, paste them into the body of your slide if you need to. And you will find, if you haven't used voice typing with students, you just hear stories non-stop from teachers about how you have kids that are really struggling to write a couple of sentences. You give them the ability to actually do that with their voice, and they instantly churn out considerably more work than they ever have before. So on that Teach from Home, you'll see that there's also, you can jump into the accessibility features on Chromebooks more, and just generally in G Suite as well. And as you can see, I could keep going on forever. One of my favorite sections in here actually is about how do I keep in touch with other teachers. And there's some really cool ideas in here. And this is a constantly evolving space as well. Please, if there is anything that you would like to know more about, you'd like help with, etc., please do use this give feedback at the bottom. I will say that in my time at Google, I have never seen us iterate quite, and Google is known for iteration at the speed that we are right now in terms of responding to the needs of educators globally, because there are literally, is it billions, it's hundreds of millions of students that are not in traditional schools at the moment, and we are trying to make sure that we are supporting schools as much as humanly possible during this time. Okay, can I just share one more thing? Is that all right, Phil?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Okay. So just jump back to this over here. So because I was originally talking about solely about inclusive technologies, and we could do this at a future GG, but if anyone has any specific interests in things that they'd like to know about, from my personal resource website, which you can see here on the screen, and I can drop in the chat, I have a presentation solely on inclusive technologies, and it's basically like my highlight reel from working with educators. So you can definitely I encourage you to look at the Teach from Home, the Chromebook and the G Suite stuff on there. This is more, I guess, from my point of view as a teacher, and you can jump into my resource site and access my inclusive technologies presentation from there, and any other presentation I've ever done as well. And once again, please do feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on that. And then very finally, because I know we have the two that are leading this on the call, I do want to flag a webinar series that's happening from a couple of our partners. So that's Jim, who you heard from at the start, and Chris Hart from Unstuck Learning Design, who I believe was on the call, unless he's left again now. And what Jim and Chris are doing is they have committed to twice weekly putting together a webinar series that we've called Online Together AU, and they are doing a whole different range of topics that are covered. So the first one was just what does it mean to move into an online learning space. The second one was around synchronous versus asynchronous learning in this sort of online space. And then last night we actually did a webinar, which Phil was on as well, about wellbeing and how do we take care of and check in with our students from a wellbeing point of view during this really different time. So once again, I would encourage you to check that out, and you can join them live tomorrow night or watch them on YouTube as well. And I will stop talking because I'm probably way over time.
That was amazing, Kimberley. Thank you so much. Again, so much in there. I'm going to have to go back and grab all those links, and I love the chat. Everyone's sharing all of those links in there. You know, all of the resources that Google have been posting out and sharing, and just I don't think Twitter has ever been so exciting in such a really scary time for everyone, but there's just so much positivity and so much sharing happening right now on Twitter. And I think that work from home, learn from home website is fantastic. But then also just your website as well. You know, I have so many times gone into that site to go, I remember I saw Kimberley present, you know, this 4 years ago. I'm going to find it again. So thank you for sharing all of those resources, Kimberley. It's amazing.
Still like an artist. There is no such thing as a new idea. Reuse, remix, repurpose. That's what I encourage you all to do.
You are amazing. Now, thank you for saying that, because when I run my session, there will be some similar crossovers to yours that I was freaking out and I was about to take out. And I thought, no, I'll leave them in. They're that important. Awesome. Thank you, Kimberley. All right, for the last one now, I will jump in and run my little presentation. I was actually looking at online learning with Google and thought that could in itself be like a 7-hour series, really. So now I've just really, I guess we want to focus on Google Hangouts Meet. So I guess Kimberley was talking about some of those resources online and how, then I guess I'm going to share how our school has used those resources and implemented those resources. We are in day 3. We've just finished day 3 of our online remote learning program, which has been quite interesting. We are learning so much and receiving some really interesting feedback. I always handle feedback in quite an interesting, maybe not interesting way, a different way. And we always talk about not doing what I do, but I go through the sheets from the form responses and I'm like, oh, there's one negative to, 1,000, maybe not 1,000, but quite a few positives. So I think if you go through this and you are sending out that feedback, make sure you go through and maybe ignore the crazy, or ignore really what I just did. So looking here at, I guess this could potentially be us at home, right? We have our little
can we get off the ground, please?
And hopefully not too much of this late nights. But nice if you have pets to be potentially working at home with those pets. So trying to find that silver lining and some positivity there for us. So Kimberley did mention this, teachfromhome.google. It is an amazing website. We've been, again, sharing this. I think, Justine, I just saw that you have shared this with your staff. Yeah, we have done the same. So a really great resource. I think there's so much, I'm just going to mute my phone. There's so much out there, like especially on Twitter right now. So just, I guess, trying to hone in on the great. And this website is really an example of that. So like Kimberley went through, you have those examples for how you can teach remotely with video calls, how you can teach remotely without the video calls, how to keep students engaged, and then how to make lessons accessible. So as you just saw, Kimberley really clicked through those, but I guess jump in if you do have time, have a little look at those resources, because I started putting all these resources together a few weeks ago, but now it's so fantastic that we have these right there, easily accessible for us. Just a few other points I wanted to mention. We are, well and truly into this, and I'm not sure if all schools are aware of this here, but Google have been helping businesses and schools stay connected. So they have changed the way that schools can use Meets, video conferencing. So that just allows us to use the advanced, I guess, Hangouts Meet for free, which is fantastic. Hangouts Meet allows us to have larger group chats. 250 would be quite overwhelming if 20 was enough today, but you can have 250, and the best thing is that you can record your lessons. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a second, but if you're not aware, this is a hyperlink that I'll add to our Google site that I'll share in a second. So what I did was I went through and I just created these steps, really basic for staff. This is when we were kind of looking at moving to this online remote learning stage. I went through and ran some staff training sessions, and then just tried to take those steps out myself of what staff may want to use Meets for. So there's some steps there. I kind of just put the steps in here for you if you'd like to do a screenshot or grab this. They will be posted online, but another resource that you can again find on the other websites as well. This, I love Google's quick start PDFs. You can jump in and find them for all of their tools. This is just a really handy one for Hangouts Meet. So it tells us straight away how we can schedule a live class, if that's what you were running, how you can ask participants to join, and then also how you can customize those different settings as well. So really, really handy to use those references. I just wanted to jump in and really talk about some tips. This is, the unknown, but potentially, where we may be working in, the first few weeks of term 2. We are not sure, but I think, something I would really encourage everyone to have a play around with over the holidays. And use these tools. So some benefits, of course, the students are in the same room online at the same time. Really important, I strongly encourage this one, to set up a class agreement, maybe a class guideline of, ways that we would behave in an online space. And I guess, like Kristy mentioned before, teaching online, live is very different to a normal class. You know, I was yesterday teaching my Year 12 media class, and I made some hilarious joke, and there was just crickets, and that was because the students had their mics muted. So I went, look, I can't hear your laughter, but I imagine that there's laughter, so I'll just carry on. Didn't go back and check if there was any laughter in the recording, but I'm sure there was. To set up those agreements of how, you know, because it is so different, we have asked all staff to record their lessons, and that's really just because, you know, if students are missing a class maybe, or want to go back, like you will all do with this, this GEG event, and watch some of those sessions, it's really, really great for the students and their understanding. The video and chat transcript will be emailed to you and uploaded to a Meet recordings folder in Drive. So if you haven't used Meet before, that's an amazing feature, and I can't wait for this chat transcript to come out because everyone's posting all of these great links that I'll share as well. Yeah, encourage students to use the chat feature like we are doing tonight. Of course, turn off the mics when you are not speaking. I think what's really great is you can reuse that same Hangouts Meet link. So say I have a link and I've just called that like Year 12 media, and then I have the link address, and that's where students will then go in. So it's like our actual classroom. It's just that link instead of the on-campus class. But I think a really great feature of Hangouts Meet is that you can really create your screencast in that way. So, you know, I started going, and there's Screencast-O-Matic, and there's QuickTime, and all of these other tools you could use for screencasts. But then I actually said the best way would be, because you're running your live lessons with Meet, you should also use Hangouts Meet for your screencasts. So what staff have been doing now, because they're so familiar with it in the last 2 weeks of trials, they're jumping into Hangouts Meet, they're not inviting anyone else, and they're recording, and then they're sharing their screen, and then they're speaking as well, which is amazing because, you know, you get the little picture in the side. So that's worked really well. So I guess if you take anything from that, encourage your staff to use that. And then, you know, it's just one tool instead of having to use multiple. And if you would like to watch a screencast, you know, if you just prefer to do screencasts instead of step-by-step, you can watch a super dorky me go through how to set up a Hangouts Meet with your class. Just one more update. This is just came out over the weekend. I think it was actually on Friday. Hangouts are improving, making some changes for improvements for remote learning. So it means that participants will not be able to join once the final participant has left, and then only meeting creators can mute or remove participants. So it means that the teacher, if the teacher is the last person to leave, then no one else can join. But the only one here is that, you know, they are working on this. I'm not sure, maybe Chris or Kimberley, you can share any info with this one, but they are saying it's being rolled out, but it's kind of a 2 to 3 week. So could potentially be handy for us at the start of term 2.
It will depend. You will get it. You have the option with your admin console to be on either scheduled or rapid release for updates. So if you are on a scheduled release domain, you likely won't have received this yet, whereas a lot of the rapid release will have. But it is being rolled out gradually. I know that, you know, like a lot of people on the call, we have multiple Google personality issues nowadays. So we have so many different accounts, and I know it's in some of my accounts and not in others at the moment. So by the end of the holidays, I would imagine it should have hit all of us.
Yeah, I can. I've been working with some people this afternoon to deal on this very issue, and what I can tell you is that the ability to mute and remove students from a Hangout seems to be in every account that I've seen so far. So I think that bit's rolled out.
Oh, great.
But the ability to have students not rejoin a nicknamed meeting doesn't seem to be fully rolled out yet. In fact, I just got an email confirming that it's not at 100% rolled out just yet. So I think the ability is there for you to create a nicknamed meeting, but that doesn't necessarily mean you've got the ability, like the feature is enabled to disable that room after it closes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I think it's still exciting, you know, and like Kimberley, you said, Google are just iterating and they're changing and they're, you know, they're listening to our, you know, our feedback as well. So make sure you are using those sites and using the, you know, get support or assistant little part you can click on, those different tools. These, you know, again, Twitter is amazing right now. There's so much happening. I just think, especially with our primary, because we've gone online remote for ELC to 12, very just to clarify, our kinder group is very different to what's happening with our Year 12 group, but we are doing, some video sent out to junior and some live lessons with, our Year 4, 5, 6 students, but very much sharing these at the start of our lessons. I even shared this one, the green visual that Nick put together with my Year 11s at the start of our first live class yesterday. And I said, it's really important that we're muting when we're not talking and all of that. And I think just setting these, agreements that everyone, we hope will follow. And I think, we set up that within our classroom, so we need to set it up online as well. So very handy. I think, there's so many visuals out there right now, but definitely, have a look at how you can make one that works for your context. And then just make sure if you're sharing these suggestions, you follow them yourself. Yesterday, I set my Year 12s to do some work, and they were working for 15 minutes, and I didn't mute myself. So I'm just, while they're working, I'm like, I'll do a bit of a tidy, cleaning up my desk, grab some paper, scrunched it up, and then a student typed, "Mr. Carew, can you please mute your mic? Your rustling of paper is quite distracting." I was horribly embarrassed at that. And I went, "Yes, no, I'm just checking to see if you're listening." So I guess we have to follow these rules as well. But some great visuals out there for you to share. And then just, really how we are running our remote and online learning program at Toorak is this visual that I have tweeted, but just really, would not be possible without Meet's classroom and then using that integration toolbox as well. So that was super short. I just wanted to share kind of, our context, our perspective of how we're going, but please, if you have questions, ask any of those questions as well. But before we do wrap up, I just want to jump in and just show this amazing visual that I always like to show at our GEGs. And I know there are so many more people on the GEG tonight that have joined through the tweets that have gone out with that link, but for everyone that did RSVP, these are some of the schools that are on the GEG tonight. And I think it's really, really important looking at this slide right now to talk about community, right? Now more than ever, we need to support each other, from different schools, from different suburbs, from different states. I think it's, very important. And I could get super emotional about this, and I won't. But I think just looking at this slide says a lot to all of us who are all in, week 9. We are, going through quite a bit. So I think let's just continue sharing online and emailing and, keeping this community going. Even though our GEG happens once a term, I really want us to continue making this network grow. So on that note, I'd like to open that up to questions. If anyone has any questions, okay, there are a lot of comments there. Amazing sharing all of those resources. But yeah, if there's any questions, please feel free to unmute and ask those questions tonight. If not, thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Phil, can I just make a quick comment?
Yes, please. I'm just really scrolling through all of the chat now. Yeah, please do.
I was super impressed by what your principal said earlier about seeing the opportunity in this challenge, and I think that's something that we ought to really embrace, this idea that, I know this is a terrible thing to be going through right now, but like there's a silver lining inside it, and that is it gives us a chance to reset and reconfigure and actually rethink a few things. And I actually tweeted something the other day that said something like, I think our ability to be intelligent as a species will be, are we able to go through this, do a bunch of different things, and then go back to normal, but not just go back to what we've always had, but actually to bring the better stuff. Because this is amazing what you've got going here. This hangout version of a GEG, I love it. I love it. And I don't know whether it's better than the face-to-face stuff, probably not, but it's a great alternative. I love what you've done here.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree. I was kind of apprehensive. I was like, I don't know, I love our space, and we're going to do these workshops and all of that, but I think this has worked so much better than I think maybe I thought it would have. And, just having so many people be able to access these, great resources that wouldn't have been able to, not everyone's close to the Mornington Peninsula, and even the time that I have the GEG start, people can't get here in time. So I think this has worked, and maybe moving forward, we have, it on campus, but then we just have it as a Meet running too. would be.
Yeah, and someone just made the comment there that this is really forced innovation, which is a lovely term.
Yeah.
I just hope we don't go back to normal when we're not forced anymore, you know. So, welcome.
Yeah. Hi, it's Justine here. Thanks so much for that, Phil. That was fantastic. And Kimberley and Chris, I think it's a really good point. It's a shame that it has, I guess, taken a pandemic for a lot of innovation to happen. But the silver lining is definitely, it's true. I think we're going to see a lot more blended learning. That's what I think we're going to see back in our classrooms after this. I know at my school, everyone has. They've got their Google Classrooms going. They're using Google Hangouts. I mean, I've virtually spent my entire day on Google Hangout with staff today and everything. But this is definitely the good thing. So nice. And by the way, thank you for those tools tonight. I must admit, I've been making so many flip learning videos, training staff and all this, and now I can see that there's actually a resource bank. So I'm really happy about that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much to the presenters, Kimberley, Melissa, and Jim, and then special guests, Chris and both Chris's actually, Betcha and Hart. Thanks for being here, everyone. It's I think really nice way to end the term in the odd situation. Awesome. Thank you. Enjoy your nights. Stay safe and healthy, and I hope to see you face to face soon.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Phil.
everyone.
Thanks for organising, Phil.
Thanks.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thanks for being there.
Bye. Thank you.